through a lot of protocols so far. We started with the takeaway into the top of the backswing, understanding how the ProSender works, moved into our last position prior to striking the ball, the halfway down point where the shaft's parallel to the ground. The club shaft is trailing the hands by leaving the back of the right hand in the wrist cradle. You're incentivized to feel that against your hand. We're leaving it there to the last parallel. Joey, why don't you go ahead and take us to that spot, and Sean's gonna discuss getting from here, which is that really important position leading into impact, to the ball. Sean?
Yeah, and basically what we're trying to do here is we're just already trying to be at impact, okay? Because what we know is that this club is going to be closing at a high rate, regardless. That's every single person in the world, just to different levels. But two from here is that if this right wrist was to stay constantly like that, it would be hard to obviously hit the ground. So from this point, as Joe gets into impact, if he kept his right wrist on there the whole time, he'd be able to flight the ball a lot. So go back to that position again. Okay, so from here now, as it's on there, as you start releasing the club, which means you're starting to lengthen it, getting it to where it's more neutral, you can feel how that's come off the back. All right, so it's really important is that as we start down, we keep it on there. Now, it's going to be really hard for us to keep it on there just based on the mechanics and the physics of the swing. So as we start down through here, as all these other things are taking place from the ground and the body, as all of this is starting to slow down and decelerate, all that is starting to accelerate, and that's what we mean by releasing the golf club. So as I've talked to, is when the club is up here, even if it's Adam Scott, the face is still massively open to the plane line that it's on. So as Joey's able to keep that on there, almost feeling just pre-impact, okay? This feeling here is something that we'll probably never be able to accomplish in real speed, because as the arms are starting to slow down, the club is starting to speed up. And so as long as we can keep in the right sequence and keep that hand path down and in, and that there, you could feel in this protocol that as you get into impact, you're still maintaining this, but that would be really, really difficult to do when you're at top speed. But it's definitely a good feeling to have, because the club is designed to actually swing past the body. The club is heavy on the bottom, light on the top, so it's based to be in a pendulum anyway. So as I'm able to get to the top and feel like as I come down to about hip high that I still have that angle on there, then everything else is just going to take care of itself, rather than us trying to get it from the top. Yeah. Ideally, as we keep the arms down and in and the club behind us, we're creating all the conditions that in space, the body's going to go ahead and let it go. So it's very similar to someone playing second base. Is the guy sitting there getting ready to catch the ball, he moves to catch the ball, but then from there, we see his arm in the video like this, but his whole intention is to throw the ball from there. So when we come down into here, we've got the right wrist on it, but that right arm is already straight, and that's going to allow us to put the most amount of energy into the ball, because the moment arm is longer, and I'll have a lot more like muscular strength if I'm hitting that object with my arm in full extension. So once again, it's just another feel versus real where the ProSender really helps people, is getting them to understand the times I've used it with amateurs, they can't believe how long they're supposed to keep the right wrist in the cradle. And it becomes, once they can feel that and they have that aha moment, they're able to replicate it a lot faster.
And I think it's really interesting, back to our point earlier, that most training aids force you into a position. And the way we design this, we want to give you a destination. That destination is to lay your hand into the back of that cradle. But you certainly are able to, on your own, come fully out of it. And we want that, because we want you to take responsibility for your own improvement. We're giving you a destination, but it's your job to learn and feel and repeat these positions rather than being held. When you're held in a position, as soon as this comes off, you're going to be right back to where you were before. There's no learning and motor skill development. So again, holding that in as long as you can. But the great thing about it is, at impact, you're not in an awkward position. You have the ability to release, come out of it, and move through the ball.
Look, what we know by looking at the data of pro golfers is the left wrist is in flexion to some extent, could be anywhere from 5 to 11 degrees, and the right wrist is still slightly an extension. Okay, part of that is because the left wrist at the top and the right wrist were way more in flexion and extension. So we know as the club is going down, as it's starting to release and get past us so we can generate club head speed, is that we are releasing it, but we are also seeing that in 2/100ths of a second, it's almost impossible from here to overdo that coming down, which is what makes it so important as far as a feedback loop from contact back to the brain.
So Joe, go ahead and go to the last moment where the shaft's parallel to the ground on the way down. In this protocol, I want you to do this 15 times. You're just going to feel pressure under the left leg, a straightening of the left side, and the wrist extending to get back to the ball. You're going to feel that forward shaft lean slightly and feel that momentum where you're keeping it on the cradle, but it's going to be allowed to come out and have the shaft line up a little bit closer to the grip at impact.